Coming to you from Orange County, California, this is the JuggLife podcast with Max Ada and Chad Wesley Smith.
Hey everybody, Chad Wesley Smith here, bringing you another episode of the JuggLife podcast. Joined as always by my co-host, we'll call him Max the Moose Montana. I feel like we were with a Canadian guest today, so it's a Moose is Canadian theme. So
make him feel at home.
Yes. And our guest today, what's the official Director of Strength and Conditioning?
Yeah.
Director of Strength and Conditioning for the Anaheim Ducks, Mark Fitzgerald. Mark, how you doing, bud?
Great. Thanks for having me, fellas.
So we're getting to know Mark over the last maybe 2 or so years, doing some professional development stuff with them, and obviously Max and I asking him tons of Mighty Ducks related questions. Surprisingly, like Goldberg isn't around the facility a lot, I guess.
Not so much anymore, no.
Dean I feel like if we had to rank who would have been the best lifters, Dean Portman, he might have been
That's
on
the D-man, right?
This is one of the Bash brothers.
Yes, yes.
He may have been on steroids. I think that there was a potential
Some urine
doping,
samples needed, put it that way.
a potential doping
Retroactive testing needed there.
issue there. Yeah, so we're excited to talk to Mark about the path to becoming a professional strength and conditioning coach, some long-term development ideas, and as well as recovery and all these things that the Ducks are working with. So today's episode is brought to you by Mighty Ducks and Medball Chucks. It's a lifestyle, and let's just get right into it with Mark. Tell us about your path to becoming a professional strength and conditioning coach.
You know what? I think it starts with I'm lucky to have 2 older brothers. I wasn't so lucky that they were very well versed in karate. But my one middle brother, who I'm very close with now, is kind of the guy that kind of exposed me to the gym. And grade 8, I think I've told this story before, where he put a 45 bar on my chest and said go, and it was one of those things where I barely got it off my chest. If maybe I didn't even know if I did, but so there was an introduction there by someone who I obviously looked up to and whatever. So I think it started there, and I played football. I obviously played hockey because I'm Canadian. That's what you do. Although I wasn't very good, so you're kind of kicked out pretty quickly when when you can't keep up. But football was more my thing. I started playing in grade 8, grade 9. I went to a different school actually just to play, which I was raised a Catholic, and I went to a public school, so that was a big no-no. But I wanted to play really badly, and I think my parents saw that. So football also kind of exposed me to the fact that you need to train. If you're not training when you're playing football, you're going to get killed. So I had a really good coach there that showed me some ropes and some training and what have you. And I was lucky enough to go to play in Canadian university football. So it's not like it is here, obviously, but it's still something that I started my playing career in university, and most of my hockey buddies were done playing hockey. Mm-hmm. It's the way it works in Canada. It's kind of too bad, because by 16, 17, you know whether or not you're going to play somewhere, typically, which ruins a lot of kids, in my opinion. But so at university, I got fully engrossed in it, and was training 5-6 days a week, and especially in our off seasons. And we trained with our track team at another university, who were one of the best track teams in Canada all time.
Simon Fraser?
No, Sherbrooke. Hurdlers and sprinters, evil bastards really, but it was a really good exposure to that, and I learned a ton. And I think it was just more of, while I was going through school, I was in my head, I'm like, well, I can't do this as a job, so I'm going to go my eldest brother's a police officer, he's a detective. My middle brother's now a firefighter, so I just figured I would do one of those jobs. I got out of school, I was teaching because I didn't get one of those jobs right away. And started training some hockey players, football players, and I approached training, I guess, more like football, which in my opinion, that's where a lot of a sport training comes from, in around us anyways. So my methodology, I guess, was maybe a little bit different from what the hockey guys were doing at the time, and it got me some good attention, and I started working with some higher level, and eventually I came across a guy named Adam Foote, who's Stanley Cup champion multiple times, gold medalist. He's won everything. And I started working with him, and that kind of opened the floodgates because his name was on the sign of our little town. And, once you work with a guy like that, it's, it opens a lot of doors, and he was a mean prick to play against. So he was known for his physicality and fitness and what have you. So it really helped me. I trained him towards the back half of his career. So I was thrown into a lot of situations that, I can't bench press, I can't squat, I can't do this, but I got to be strong and I got to be ready to play. So I was green as shit, and I had to kind of learn and adapt a little bit on the fly, which turned out to be a good thing for me because I'm still doing that, with different athletes that we get. You can't fit everybody into that, silo of training. There's got to be some real specific things that you're doing with guys. So, once I started working with him and kind of building my confidence and building my education and all that kind of stuff, it just kind of spurred into other things. I got a job with a junior team, which is a big feeder league to the NHL, AHL, so that helped my credibility. And then I got a call from the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is the biggest hockey team in the NHL, really, and someone recommended me, and luckily someone opened the door for me. I did a good job when I had the opportunity, and I worked for them for 7 years. And during that time, I started to build my own business, and eventually now I have 4 facilities in Canada, and kind of still building that. Not that I want to open more, but it's just good opportunities, and people are hockey crazy. So that's kind of where I was at, and happy doing that, and the businesses were good, and got a call from these guys. And, hey, are you interested? Again, the hockey world's really small, and I've been fortunate to be the benefactor of that with coaches and general managers that I've worked for and I feel done a good job for. Then they recommend me for a job, and at the time it's like, I'm Canadian, it's cold there for the most part, and do you want to move to Southern California? I have 3 young kids, 4-year-old twins, and at the time they were 3 under 3. So we said, if we're going to move, this is probably the time in our life to do it, and before they get into, major school and friends and all that kind of stuff, we can go and see if it's a fit, and if it's not, we can always come back. So made the move out here, and got, again, really fortunate to have worked with the people that I have worked with and given this opportunity. And now I'm into my 2nd contract, and it's enjoying life out here in terms of Southern California, obviously, and I feel like I still have a long way to go in terms of the coach that I want to be and continually learning. That's why we bring in you guys, a different way to approach our training, a different way to think about our movement. And hockey's, I know we're going to get into it, but hockey's a kind of a hybrid sport because of the ice, because of that factor that and we'll talk more about that long-term stuff, but you have to be sharp. In my opinion, you have to really understand all the aspects of it in order to carry out a training program. So that's kind of the path, I guess. And the hockey world, like I said, really small, and I think I've been a big benefactor of that. And obviously, when I had the opportunity, I worked hard, but I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California, not a big hockey culture here at all. And you began to touch on it a couple times there, talking about Canada's hockey crazy, of course, and there's youth hockey and junior hockey, and I think it is a bit unique in its system. I hear about my parents are from Minnesota, so I hear about cousins and friends of cousins and stuff, like going to live with other families to play for these junior teams and everything. But could you describe a little bit like what a typical path, youth to junior to professional hockey may be?
Yeah, and I'll reference Ontario because Ontario is the most heavily populated province in Canada. That's obviously where I'm from, and Toronto is the major city there. Ottawa is the capital city of Canada. So that's, out west has a big contingent too, and east does as well with Quebec and what have you. But Ontario is really the hub, and the path there is, you play minor hockey for your town, whatever that is. And
what age is that beginning at?
Oh, my son started at 3. He started to learn to skate at 3, 2 or 3, basically whenever they can stand up. I have friends back home, just buddies that I grew up with who put skates on their kids' feet before shoes. And I'm not even kidding. They take the blades off the skates so they can walk around and get comfortable in the skates. So that when they put them on the ice, it's nothing. It's not new. I mean, whether or not it works, I have no idea because I never did it because I think that's a little insane. But it's inbred in right away. You watch the Leafs every Saturday night at Hockey Night in Canada. It's just what you do, And so the pathway is you play for your city from
box of Tim Hortons and
Yep.
Hockey Night in Canada.
You go to the rink.
A couple of Bat Blues.
Yeah, Molson Canadian, whatever. Yeah, you're right. But that's what it is. Like, there's no, there's other sports that are growing, and we were talking about rugby before, but nothing touches hockey. Nothing. And you play for your city from like 6 years old and up, and you're playing 3-4 nights a week at 6 years old.
Wow.
Up at 6 a.m. They're usually the first kids on the ice because that's just the way it goes. I mean, where I'm from, Whitby, Ontario. 130,000 people, 12 hockey rinks. 12.
Well, you wouldn't have,
Like
have to
indoor?
wait.
Indoor, yeah. Yeah. Ice all year, other than a few of them. So, you play for your city, and then by the time you get to 12, 13, if you're playing at the AAA level, that's the highest level, AAA, AA, A, whatever. And if you're playing at that level, then you have a pretty good idea whether or not you can take that next step. I think anyways. And then by 15, you're looking to get drafted. You're looking to get drafted into the Ontario Hockey League, which is like the junior league, Canadian Hockey League. And the one out west is the WHL, in the east is the Q. So all those together, 60 teams total is the CHL. And you're looking to get drafted there because that's the biggest feeder league to the NHL. And like I was saying before, if you don't get drafted there, a lot of kids think that their hockey careers are over at 15 years old, which is ridiculous, right? Because you get a lot of kids that come through that are physically not developed yet.
Yeah, right.
You get the majority of them that aren't, so.
Not to go on too much of a tangent here, but in Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell Outliers, and he talks about what a high percentage of NHL players were born in the first 6 months of the year. Because when you're getting into these teams at 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old, when you're 8 years old, if you were born in January with the cutoff date being January 1, compared to a kid who was born in August, you're 8 months older than him. That's such a big percentage of their life at that point that like the physical development is huge. So they get better coaching, more practice, all that stuff. But so you continue with the junior.
Yeah, and it's amazing the amount of pressure, for those kids. You get drafted, and again the stats on. So say you got drafted, well then it goes to where'd you get drafted? If you're outside the first 3 rounds, it don't really matter. Again, yes, there's those great stories of the kids that got drafted in the 12th or 13th round that have made the NHL now. Well, they were always going to make the NHL. It's just they were just late to develop. That's in my opinion. The whole development process is very misunderstood in hockey, in my opinion, because you're getting these kids at 15 that are having to make big life decisions. I'm gonna, like you said, I'm gonna move away from home. I'm gonna go live with these other people, and I think that's where you kind of get the that where things start to fall apart a little bit. And there's stories of success in that situation, but I think there's a lot more of, and you could define success however you want, but to me it's, let's build the athlete first. Let's make sure all those qualities, and yes, your sport is, you want to be good at your sport and what have you, but even this past week with our development camp here, you see guys that, and you played any other sports? Nope. Yeah, that's why you can't, what's a shortstop position? You have no idea. Like a simple kind of coaching cue, like you're about to feel the ground ball. Some kids are like, huh? So it's...
hockey players probably don't really know how to jump very well, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, it just depends if they're jumping laterally or if they're jumping, if they're going out in a broad jump, those are, more towards, but a vertical jump, yeah, you won't see a lot of, impressive data on stuff like that. But yeah, the model is, so, you get a lot of kids who, again, they'll get drafted and they start their development process in the junior ranks, and then you get those kids who don't get drafted who then look to go NCAA route, which in my opinion is probably, it depends on the kid, right? But there's advantages to both. If you're in the top 3 rounds in this junior, you're probably pretty good. So you have a pathway there. if you didn't get drafted, it means that, again, more than likely you haven't physically developed yet. You know, like I've had stories of kids that passed over in the draft, they trained for another 2 years, and then they get a scholarship, and all of a sudden by the time they get the scholarship, they're men. You know, they're 18, 19 years old, they're going to school, and you know, they end up getting to the pros anyways, you know?
So it sounds like maybe a more similar structure, you know, and I don't know how many hockey fans we have that listen to the podcast, but maybe a more similar structure to baseball, where guys are going into the minor leagues straight from high school, and it's almost like a negative to go to college instead. But what I want to dive into more is through this system. I mean, I'm sure something that you're running into is, you know, early specialization, like you just said, that they haven't done anything else. And you know, whether you're a hockey fan or coach hockey athletes or baseball players or football players or weightlifters or track athletes, whatever, like the stuff we're going to talk about now is universally applicable. And I think that's the whole idea is when you're dealing with 15 and 16-year-olds, it's not about what sport they play. It's about making the athlete. So, you know, if we make Mark Fitzgerald becomes the king of Canadian hockey, you know, which is really just the king of Canada at that point. But, and you have to make the decisions about, you know, what those 4 or 5-year-olds are going to do on all the way up through these different levels. What's important for that first stage of development?
Well, I think first stage is exposure. You know, I think there's not enough emphasis on exposure to other activities or sports outside of your chosen sport. Which, again, the fact that you say chosen sport to a 6-year-old, like I use it with my son, and I don't think I'm crazy, but he wrestles, he does he plays hockey, he plays baseball, he plays soccer, and he plays flag football. And all of them are different, and they all give him, in my opinion, a variety of different tools to start to build. You know, wrestling is good for just roughhousing and, you know, kind of getting those little knocks in the face and in his hands, and obviously competitiveness and, you know, just not to sound crazy, but a little bit of aggression, you know, like control, because it's wrestling, from what I've learned, very respectful. Like you don't really get angry, but you're being, I think maybe aggressive is the wrong word, but you're being, there's definitely that undertone of it, but is very respectful at the same time. You know, the flag football is great for agility and, you know, more kind of raw athleticism. You know, hockey, I think, is good for his hand-eye and his balance. And obviously with me doing what I do, he loves it. He thought I played for the Ducks for a while, which is pretty funny. But nice. I went with it, not gonna lie.
Well, Dad, why didn't I see you in the game tonight?
Yeah, I got benched. Yeah. But, you know, then soccer, you know, it's, again, all the great qualities that come with soccer. And I think, you know, you come to a town like mine and it's just, you know, my kid's on the ice. So hockey starts September 1st, call it, and it doesn't end until March 1st, and maybe not even April. And then April they have the tryouts again, and then in the summertime you have skills camps, you have spring travel teams where they're plucking kids. You know, it would be like you and I starting the Juggernaut hockey team. We're gonna go and play in 5 tournaments. It's gonna cost you $5,000 per kid, and you're gonna get exposed to scouts and this and that. It
sounds like a plan. Let's sign these little fuckers up.
And we could. The sad part is that we could. You know, like it's. I think they're preying on people a little bit because there's so many experts out there, and you know, where my company preaches, hey, one summer with us, yeah, you might get some gains and you might whatever. You're going to learn a ton. You're going to get exposures to a lot of different things, but 3 summers, 4 summers, 5, that's where we're going to really show our value. That's what I try, and that's not the sexy pitch, right? Because they want, oh, what are you going to do with my 8-year-old? Nothing. He's not welcome here until he's ready to train. You know, like wait till he's in grade 8, and if he starts to show some signs of, and we'll have some youth camps and stuff like that, but I say that to people and they just look at me sideways, you know, because it's like, well, no, I want to pay you to train well, no, just go buy a basketball net. Oh, you know, like, and that's the other part
Like
too.
a basketball net for him to shoot hockey pucks
Yeah.
through, because
But it's funny when I say
not do hockey.
But when I say play another sport, it's hilarious because people go like, "Well, we just don't have time." And it's another. I'm like, no, like just play it, like just play recreationally. You're still going to get some benefit.
like roller hockey.
Yeah.
Is roller hockey really frowned upon in Canada?
I wouldn't say it's frowned upon, but I don't like it personally for our hockey athletes because it's just different mechanics. It's just slightly different, and it's just
it's not different enough to really be different, but
and the wheels and how they're pushing, and I feel like it shortens their stride, like on the ice. Not to be a nut job, but I try and keep a lot of our girls do it back home with some of our university teams, and all of a sudden their strides get shorter.
Yeah.
And they get adductor problems or hip problems. It's like, stop rollerblading. Oh, I rollerblade every day. Yeah, I know. Stop. But yeah, I think that the long-term stuff is just exposure. And I think it's exposure at a low level. At a low level initially. Like, we run the development for Whitby minor hockey, and all we've done is we've built out structured play. How are we going to jump over a hurdle? How are we going to sprint? Tug of war. You know, pushing the sled a little bit, nothing like weight bearing or anything like that. And the kids love it because it's a little more unstructured. Obviously there's coaching and what have you, but it's not, you know, some of these hockey coaches making kids run around laps and rinks, and it's just, you know, it's kind of bizarre because that long-term development is all thought to take place on the ice. Mm-hmm. And yes, that's a piece of it, of course, but I think actually USA Hockey is doing a really good job. Maybe because of a little bit different culture in terms of it's not as popular of a sport here, but here especially, I think the programs that they've started are really, really good. You know, and they're doing the small area games, they're breaking up the ice. You go back home at 7 years old, you're playing full ice games.
So beyond 7, 8 years old, where do you see the next phase?
Honestly, I think it's just more exposure. I think it's less ice time. Whereas if I said that in front of anybody who's Canadian, they might hit me, you know, because they want more ice.
Canada's mostly ice anyway.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so they want more ice time. They want, you know, they feel like if they change what they're doing on the ice, that's okay. I'm saying no, take them off the ice. Let them do wrestling. Let them do, you know, flag football. These other sports that are going to be beneficial to them on the ice. Like I said, I did a presentation. Just on long-term development, some hockey stuff, and some of the research studies that I had with some friends that provided me the information were, you know, kids as young as 17 years old having hip labral pathology, you know, and the percentage is in the 80s and 90s, you know, and some of the kids, you know, won't have symptomatic, but they have it, you know, which is to think of at 17 years old, you already have the beginnings of tears in your hip labrum. You know, and it's like 17, and you know, after you see something like that, it's okay. Something's got to change here, or you know, skating is unnatural to begin with, and some people just aren't meant to do it in a smooth and efficient way. You know, you guys have been to some games now, like you can tell who's a good skater. You know, a guy like Cam Fowler, our defenseman, it looks effortless when he skates, and other guys just don't have that, and they fight it a little bit more. And the guys that fight it, that's more common than the guys that don't. You know what I mean? You get a smooth skater and it's like, wow, that's incredible. Because it's an acquired skill. And the teachings of it are so tough for young kids because there's so many other things that are going on with these giant immovable boots on your feet. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like sprinting. It's not like, you know, that part of it is so much more difficult. And I don't think anybody has that figured out either. You know, like at 7 and 8 years old, can you really teach a complex skill like that, or is it more just survival? You know, so I feel like, again, a second level of exposure to other movements is going to benefit them when they get their feet back in those boots. That's just my thought. And then I think as you go up the chain, it's just, you know, where does training come in? I think you can start training at any age, really. It's just more of a mentality and teaching through different planes of motion. But I also think, too, that other sports are going to offer that. Right. You know, so I don't know. I think not enough focus is put on just exposure to other activities. And most people in Canada will think, not most people in Canada, but a lot of these hockey parents will think, well, I don't have time to let my kid play basketball because every other sport is a travel team and it's like
Yeah.
all year round. So all the sports are doing it. I think hockey's in a tougher spot because of the ice factor and what it does, because it's so unnatural. Like, it's more detrimental to do hockey and only hockey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What would that typical time that you think it might be appropriate for someone to choose to whatever their sport of choice is, to transition to that being the only sport that they play? Not that to get into more of like a typical, because obviously the NHL players you coach, they only play hockey, but you know, they don't play hockey every day all year round. But at what time is it appropriate for that to become their singular focus within like an annual plan?
Yeah, I think first it depends, you know, and that's the easy answer, but it really does. If it's an underdeveloped kid who's maybe gotten drafted, you know, there's a waiting period there. Like, you can't put load on that kid's back because he's not ready to do it yet. So I really do think though, like that grade 9, grade 10, so that freshman, sophomore year of high school is probably in and around that time. And I say that with a grain of salt because, you know, I think it's a case-by-case basis, but I think at least at that age, hopefully puberty has started, so there's a training element, and then they'll probably know grade 10 is the age they get drafted. So, you know, if you're playing in the OHL or you're playing in a junior team, just from the volume of time committed to that one sport alone in hockey, I don't think there's a ton of other time for other sports.
Right,
you know, so out of kind of a necessity aspect, it's probably that time frame.
You know, I was talking with some of your colleagues outside before, and they're about working with volleyball players. And the first couple of years of Juggernaut, that was a huge population for us. We had about 200 club girls volleyball players from 12 to 18 years old. And I was working with James Smith at the time from Global Sport Concepts and The Thinker, and Max's former roommate as well.
Nice.
And we ended up pitching this idea to the club director, knowing that they weren't going to go for it, but kind of having to do it anyways because it is the right idea to give them. But in these club volleyball players, you had such a wide variety of physical preparation, and club volleyball is very much the same problems that we're talking about with hockey that exist with basketball, from high school basketball to AAU to camps all summer, or soccer, high school soccer, club soccer, different club soccer team, baseball, travel ball, summer winter league, all this stuff. It's an epidemic problem in America. It sounds like in Canada as well, of early specialization in these youth athletes. So we'd see in these volleyball girls such a wide variety of physical preparation. From, you get a girl who's 6'2" and 14 years old, like, of course her knees are knocking together and she can't control her body, compared to some usually like typically shorter, a little bit of the shorter girls who maybe also played softball or soccer or something and had more well-rounded skills. So what we had proposed to them was like, let us take them through this evaluation process and some general tests to classify them into 3 groups. The GPP dominant group, or the group that needs the most GPP, then a 50-50 group, and the group that can handle the most SPP, special physical preparation, like volleyball practice. And if they practiced for 2 hours 3 times a week, like the GPP, the needs GPP group would spend 90 minutes on GPP drills and 30 minutes on volleyball, and the other group an hour, and the third group, the most developed group, 30 minutes on GPP, 90 minutes on volleyball. Yeah. And I'm just kind of generalizing the numbers and the idea a little bit, but creating that sort of a classification system, because whether it's volleyball or hockey, whatever, you can know, you can make the best platform possible to make these passes for volleyball and understand the strategy and all this shit. But if you can't get in the position, it doesn't matter. If you can't get to the ball, you might know where it's going to go, but if you're not fast enough to get there, it doesn't matter. And maybe you can get there one time, but you're going to get injured from the repetitive nature a lot of these sports. Is that, as you look at improving long-term development models, is something like that something you'd consider?
I mean, yeah, I think I think we've done that in the past to some degree, not exactly the same, but it's even when our pro athletes come in the summertime back home, it's okay. There's guys that play in different leagues, different countries, that play different positions, that have different body types. So, so much of hockey training, where it started was a lot of, when the functional training started to come back into, or maybe that's when it started. I don't know. I don't even know what that means anymore. But, it was more that everybody was doing a lot of these cookie cutter programs on balance boards and Bosu balls, and nothing wrong with those things. Hey, whatever. But, it was like, oh, hockey guys don't, lift heavy. Well, some of them need to. Like when I'm thinking about hockey players training, I train athletes. It doesn't matter if it's hockey or volleyball or whatever. It's, do you possess athletic qualities to, like you said, make you perform in your sport? So when I designed the testing for the Ducks, I said, I'm trying to bring out and showcase the best athlete. So when we designed we took all our testing and we weighted it to come out with a score, I said the best athlete will win my testing. There's some teams in the NHL that still do weightlifting for testing, which to me is mind-boggling, because my job is to keep the athletes available to play. Full stop. I have no, my job is to keep them healthy enough to participate in their sport and participate at a level that is needed to play in the best league in the world. So I can't make them weightlifters. Some of our guys are, disgustingly strong for a pro athlete and they love lifting, but that's very few. Most of them just kind of, they know they have to do it, so they do it, and some of them hate it. So, and some of those guys that hate it are some of our best athletes. So you have to really, in designing something like that, I want to be cognizant of the fact that I'm still looking for athletic qualities, because better athlete means I'm going to give our hockey coach someone who is going to be able to maybe take direction better, is going to be able to get to the puck. Maybe they don't know what to do with it, but at least they get there, and kind of what you said too, the positioning, if they can't get to the ball, then what's the point? Well, I think the same way is I'm going to make our guys the most physically prepared they possibly can be. And the best athletes on our team are typically the ones that play the most and last the longest and have the best careers. The guys that are just hockey only rarely last, and that's, you're seeing it more and more now with these overuse injuries and the hip pathologies that we were talking about, is if you don't have that base athletic qualities in place, then you have to start from scratch. And there's guys on our team, and we just had our development camp, and we are all 4 coaches. I have my assistant, and then we have 2 guys from San Diego, so we're all watching and we're all communicating the same language as to what we're looking for, and problems that we can kind of hope to solve over those 5 days, or at least address with the athlete. And
when you say base athletic qualities, what are those qualities?
Strength, some level of strength. We use chin-ups as a part of that. We use their body weight, body fat, I think is something I group into strength, because it tells me about physical development. It tells me how far along you are. Jumping qualities, the ability to produce force and express it through a jump. We measure vertical jump, broad jump, and lateral bounds. A little more sport specific, if there is such a thing. We look for power development, so we test wing gait, 30-second max effort sprint. So we take the peak power that they're able to produce on the bike. We also take watts per kilo is basically how efficient they are throughout that test. And then we use a certain type of FMS screen, just a movement screen. It's not right as the same as the FMS, but I work with Dr. Scott Lynn at Fullerton, Cal State Fullerton, who's a doctor of biomechanics, and he's kind of taught me quite a few things about what to look for in a screen like that and why we do certain things. We also use like a core trunk endurance test, just to see what they can handle. That anything around the midsection is so important for any athlete, but hockey players specifically. So all those factors to me, and then we weigh them a little bit differently. I have the formula, in my opinion, that put together has the same guys who win the tests every year, who are in those upper echelon, are our best athletes. You know, are they the best guys in the gym? A lot of them tend to like the gym because they're good at it, but it's not always the case. You know, we have a guy who's 34 that was in the top 10 of fitness testing. That's pretty rare, but he is a phenomenal athlete. You know, lateral movement, power, just natural athleticism. And some of that is, you know, some of that is just ingrained. You know, he has good genetics, but I think when I look at those physical qualities, the power, the strength, the ability to produce power, all those things, those are what makes up a good athlete to me in terms of hockey especially. I think maybe if it was a field sport, there might be a few other things that I would look at, but I think we have a good battery, and it, for the guys again that are in the top, it makes sense, you know.
Do you find that you get people even as high top level and NHL level that they lack some of those basic qualities? I mean, they're just completely underdeveloped, or is that by the time they get there, that most guys have sort of filled in the blanks to some degree?
No, there's lots of discrepancy. You know, you get a kid who's played hockey his whole life, or at least from, 12 on. You know, imagine not playing any other sport but hockey from 12 on. You know, you're going to miss out on a lot of things. I also think too, you talk about the hip pathology stuff, but posture, they're always like this. You know, you see a lot of trap and neck issues because they're just always rolled in forward in that posture so much. They're always on the ice. They're stick in front of them. It's just inevitable. And then, with hockey, it's very violent. You're smashing into each other at all sorts of speeds, and it just creates a bad environment for shoulders and healthy shoulders. And you get some of these kids, you're 14, 15, 16 years old. What do you want to do when you go to the gym? You want to bench, so their bench technique is piss poor, and they start to develop shoulder problems. You see most hockey players with a big bump on either one or either side of their shoulders. They're AC, right? A lot of hockey players will have AC joint separations and broken clavicles and labral tears and what have you. So I think there's a lot of holes to fill in still. I think when you have somebody who's, got it figured out, that's a pretty special player.
Yeah.
And there's guys in our team over the last 3 years with me that, I get him, and it's like, okay, a lot of good qualities, but, he's dumped forward in his hips, so he's going to create some back problems and some hip flexors, some low ab problems. Okay, let's address that. Okay, we fixed that. That took 8 months because of the reality of our season and, whatever, and maybe that guy fights and hits a lot, so you throw that in there too. So I think you're constantly trying to fill the buckets of those missing pieces. And again, I think when you get somebody who's 90% of the way there, that's huge, because there's a lot of guys that keep doing what they do every summer and they don't really adapt. But I'm even learning too that the older athlete, it's different. You can't do the same stuff over and over. You can't have the same volume. You got to reteach the nervous system a little bit, from what I'm seeing in hockey anyways, because they're always jacked up, and I'm learning more about the older athlete now too, and how to really keep them progressing, because it keeps, it's increasingly difficult. The young guys are a little easier because you can fix a lot of their, lack of power and lack of strength with just basic lifting, but the older guys are a little trickier.
Well, obviously, recovery is a big component of any athlete's training, but you have guys playing 82 games a year, traveling for half of those, going on these road trips. I know you told me the last time you were over about, they finish the game, and 20 minutes after that, they're supposed to be out of the locker room of a visiting team and getting on the bus to drive 30, 45 minutes or whatever to the airplane to fly to the next place, and they get there, early morning hours and all this stuff. So it's a very challenging recovery situation. What are some things that you guys like to do, passive, active modalities, to improve your players' recovery?
Yeah, again, we had some students in from the university helping us with testing. I said, they want to come in and see what we do during the week. And I said, but don't expect, this is a very imperfect setup. I said, because the reality of the sport is that, you're right, when we finish a game, everybody's a mad panic to get the hell out of there. It drives me crazy because it's like we rush to go sit down, like the plane's not going to leave any earlier. We may get there earlier, but it's scheduled to leave at a certain time. It ain't leaving before that. So a lot of the work that I would try to implement as far as physical recovery, is minimized on the road, especially post-game. What I do try to do post-game is optimize nutritional recovery. So make sure all our guys are drinking shakes post-game, whether we have a meal on site. The NHL is the never hungry league, so there's always food around, and there's always copious amounts of food. It's a hockey tradition that you order pizza after games, which I tried to fight my first year and I lost horribly. I just order a different kind of pizza now, and I make sure they drink their shakes first. So, and our guys are so awesome, and they get it because they know I care, and it's coming from passion and wanting to help them.
Like 82 times a year they order pizza?
Yeah, pretty much.
Not
at home. Sorry, not at home. Not at home. At home we have our arena restaurant as a post-game meal, so it's really good food. But on the road you order pizza, a lot of it. So, and most guys, to be honest, will just have a slice, and it's not the end of the world because they've just dumped so many calories that it's not a bad way to put something back in, and everybody likes pizza. So
correct.
Pizza, baby.
Yeah,
true.
And then so say we're flying somewhere else on the road. It's I plan all of our actually we have a new nutritionist this year who's great, who is great. So she'll help me with that now, is planning our plane food, so making sure that we have, I call it our athlete's plate, making sure that the majority of our meals hit all those criteria: good carbs, protein, good fats, greens, whatever. You guys, nothing rocket science there, but, so making sure that everything is taken care of nutritionally, and then rehydrating. If the flight is long, short, whatever, we use some supplements for that. We make sure that every guy has, they're all available to them as they get on and off the plane. Sleep is obviously a big one for me too. So talking to the guys about sleep, we use some sleep supplements that aren't, what's that one called?
Yeah, ZMA or?
No, not the really harsh one. That puts you to sleep like crazy. Ambien, yeah. I hate the Ambos. So I try to teach throughout the year about quality sleep and what that means. We use Power Off is a really good one, or a couple different other ones that we use that are more natural, as opposed to the Ambiens, because Ambien's really just false, right? It's just putting you to sleep but not real deep sleep. So we try to teach about that, and really that's, I don't say the extent, but that's the focus of mine, especially on the road with, it's nutritionally, it's hydration, and it's sleep. And then on the road, what we will do is, especially for our team, because we do take extended trips, 16, 17-day trips, we'll end up training on the road at gyms or other places as opposed to post-game, because it just doesn't work so well. So that gives me an opportunity to visit other gyms and connect with guys and coaches and stuff, which the guys like because it's a break from the norm. So, but that's really where I try to put my time and energy, is the things I can control. I can control the food, hydration, and sleep to some extent. Yeah, that's kind of where I put a lot of my time in terms of recovery. And again, it's harder to do on the road just because of the circumstance. But I think we do a pretty good job.
I think I remember you talking about, maybe getting in like the hotel like ballrooms and stuff to do the breathing and self-myofascial release type of drills.
Yeah, we'll do that usually when we land. Like, so if we have a 3 to 5 hour flight, which we have a lot of those because it's where we are, we'll land in the city, and I'll get the guys that they go into the rooms, they get changed into their, workout gear, and we have a room set out for us. We have foam rollers, balls, bands, and we'll go through like a 15-20 minute movement session. Nothing overly complicated. I'll take probably half the team into the pool. It's an optional thing, but a lot of the guys have started to really buy into it. 10-15 minutes in the pool, just moving around, a little bit of swimming, a little bit of shallow end work, and you feel tremendously better. I know for me, like me and my I think you met Joe before, our video coach, we work out together. So it's the first thing I want to do when I land is after my work responsibilities are done, we'll go work out. It's just something about the travel and like getting the blood flowing again. And that's obviously they don't need to work out like I am, but they need to move. And I think that's a lot of the guys, you know, you're tired after a flight. It's just almost human nature. So getting them moving, getting them in the pool, then you all of a sudden get hungry, you know, so it's kind of getting them, kickstarting their routine of whatever city we land in, you know, because what we try to do as well is you try to land and acclimate almost immediately, especially if we're going to be on the East Coast for 14 days. The faster we acclimate to the time zone, the better it is for us. So, you know, the little things like that is just quality of movement above everything else. If we got the nutrition, hydration, and sleep stuff kind of under control, okay, next for me is quality of movement. Are we moving well? Are we making sure that blood flow and all that good stuff that comes with exercise is happening? You know, and sometimes it's hard with these young guys that all they want to do is sleep. I'm running through the plane, opening up shutters and saying, let's go, get up.
Pizza and sleep.
Yeah.
With the travel stuff, you guys do any like EMS on the planes ever?
Oh yeah,
or?
Yeah. We have it's like a full-on little clinic going on.
Yeah.
The guys in the Normatex and STEM, whatever situation we're dealing with, there's always something going on, because it's time that we have to take advantage of. You know, so it's and again, you control what you can. If you know we're going to be sitting there for 5 hours, you might as well put on a Compex and reinforce X, Y, and Z. I try to make sure all the guys get up and move around too. Even just myself, like it's hard sometimes. You get caught up doing work or whatever. These guys, watch movies and whatever, and you try to, hey, get up, get moving. Like. How
much of this stuff goes on in other teams that you see?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of great coaches in our league. I think a lot of them are. There's so much of our job that's not in the gym, and making sure that guys are, they're at our rink for 3 hours a day, in a typical practice day. So there's lots of other time for lots of other things,
right.
So if you're not creating influence outside of just your kind of direct time with them, I think you're missing out on where you really need to be spending your time, and the training part's easy. Hey, we're going to do these 3 exercises today, but hey, make sure you have a good lunch and make sure you're in bed early tonight and make sure your sleep hygiene is on track. Do a brain dump, turn the lights down, no TV, no phone, those types of things that are going to give us that 2, 3, 4% increase.
Right.
Like with the league that is now so competitive and so fast, like those 2, 3, 4% in our favor are massive, so
right.
It's the details, right?
So you had mentioned hockey being a hybrid sport. You should talk about sort of the energy systems that are at play for a hockey player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mentioned a guy that Adam Foote, who I first started with, and that was a long time ago. I'm dating myself, but at the time it was still aerobic. Still heavy aerobic sport. So he would get on a stationary bike and he would ride for 75 minutes at a time. And it's just like, you can't. I hate doing cardio to begin with, but to do it at the pace and intensity that he did it for that amount of time, it was just a normal thing. When I first worked in the gym with him, we must have had 12 Monarch bikes because that was just part of what you did. I remember writing up bike rides twice a week minimum of like anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes.
Wow.
And I kind of cringe at it now because what are you doing? You're just shortening hip flexors and you're reinforcing kind of a pattern you almost really don't want to, and you're rounding backs and you're
a hockey game is 60 minutes, but how long is one player typically on the ice for?
Yeah, I mean at the low end 3 to 5 minutes, at the high end 28.
And what's how long is a shift?
Anywhere from 30 to 70 seconds. The average being 40 to 60. But it's that. Yeah, I would say 40 to 60 is probably your hot point, like your average or whatever.
So probably from about 5 to 20 shifts in a game that they play.
Yeah, roughly. like I said, it was an aerobic base to start. That was the, when I first got into it. And, when I started training guys, I said, like, no, well, you can do your bike ride, but we're going to the track. And that was a new thing for a lot of the hockey guys that I work with is, well, we're going to the track so we can pair up with what we just did in the gym. We can complement what we just did in the gym by expressing it through sprinting. And now you see all these studies coming out, the correlation between sprint speed and on ice. It's like, well, yeah, of course. Like yes, is it a little bit different, but you're trying to do the same thing. You're trying to propel yourself forward, right? You're trying to gain ground, whatever. And that's where I think, again, I got fortunate where my training was different, even though it wasn't really different from any solid training plan. But a lot of guys weren't doing that. We weren't doing the aspect of, pulling a sled and, sprinting. A lot of guys were doing 800s and 400s. And I did a little bit of that too, to be honest, but I always felt more benefit in athletes that learned how to get from 0 to 10 yards more efficiently.
I see that with baseball players a lot. Like, you always see pitchers doing long distance running. And it's like, they might be playing, the game might last 3 hours, but they're doing something that takes 1 second, 100 times over the course of that 3 hours. And that's where you get into this hybrid concept that aerobic capacity plays a tremendous role for these short recovery periods between these 40 to 60 second bouts. But, Adam Foote riding the bike for 75 minutes is like, you get the explosive strength and the power on one hand and the aerobic capacity on the other hand, and how to develop that aerobic capacity without taking away so much from that power. So what are some ways that you guys work for aerobic capacity without, that you feel aren't detracting from the athlete's speed and power?
Well, I think for me it was the first way I felt like it could accomplish that is pace. I felt like when we were training way back then, it was, there was that old thing like, you took X amount of time between sets and whatever. And I and this is a Mike Boyle thing, who's big in our world, my world anyways, in terms of, training hockey players and what have you. And you can get a lot of that aerobic capacity work done if you run a good warm-up. You could also get a lot of good aerobic capacity work is if you pay closer attention to rest time in between sets. You can also get it done early in the year with, metabolic circuits or metabolic like strongman work and stuff like that. You can really, and once you get it, I feel like too with our hockey guys, because they play the sport so goddamn much, they're topping it up anyways. They're already coming in with a higher than average aerobic base, so you don't really need to touch it a whole lot. So we accomplish it through those three things mainly is the pace of warm-up, the pace between sets. Obviously, we're going to give them optimal rest, but just watching their heart rate and making sure it's staying at a certain level throughout, as opposed to letting it drop all the way down. And just little things. You guys know that. I don't think it's anything too special, but their sport takes care of a lot of it. And having influence of what they are doing on the ice, that helps too. And I'm lucky here with our coaching staff. They let me have influence. Some don't. So we try to make sure that we're, there's some plan to what we're doing from month to month, 6 weeks to 6 weeks of, hey, this is going to be a work day. Today is going to be short, more intense. All right, this practice is going to be a little bit longer and a little less intense, so we can build some capacity here. Like, it's hard to do for our schedule, but that's part of my job is to look at almost like a program and say, okay, where can we fit in work days? Where do we need back off days? It's all subject to change, of course, but. So
you're kind of serving like a high performance director, program manager type of role there?
I mean, again, I'm not the sport coach. The sport coach is the ultimate, but I'm giving him information. Hey, here's what our guys did. Here's what happened. We track technology and practice and stuff like that, and here's what we just did. So these guys are in the red because, there are high minute guys, there are power play guys, whatever. These guys here are yellow, they're kind of teetering on the edge. Okay, these guys you can push. We try to give him that type of information so that he can design the practices that will suit the majority of the needs. Hey, these guys are going to stay on after the ice and do a little bit more. Okay, great. But these guys are getting the hell off, so.
So you mentioned some other technology, Compex, Normatec, stuff like that for recovery, and a little bit more there. So what other technology are you guys employing that you feel is really, really useful with the athletes?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm lucky with our group of guys who are very open to it. And I think with you guys training youth athletes, they ask a lot more questions now, I find. And I think it's great because, I think it creates more conversations, what have you. We use an on-ice tracking system. We use a couple of them, Polar and Zephyr. So those, we can't track anything in-game. It's just a CBA rule. We're not allowed to wear it. I'm sure it'll come eventually, and someone will buy it, I'm sure. But right now we can't track that, and I don't really care because we've done enough measuring at this level and at the AHL level, which you are allowed to wear it, that we basically know what a game is.
Yeah.
We know the load of a game.
Right.
So we know what to expect with that. But with practice is kind of the intangible that's kind of unknown, right? Because some practices can be harder than others. It can take more out of certain players depending on their position, and maybe there's only 5 defensemen today, so they're doing a lot more work. Or maybe it's a power or penalty kill practice, and the penalty killers are getting gassed because it's a very tough job. So the technology kind of tells me the effect of the practice, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. Where our guys, heart rate zones, where they spend the most amount of time, the average compared to what they did, physiological load, how many sprints. It has accelerometry data on it as well. Little things like that. We try to body fat. That's not real technology, but we test anywhere every 3 weeks to every month, hopefully, depending on travel.
What's your method with that?
In season, it's a 7-site pinch. We also have the in-body. I use more of that for injury recovery, because guys can just kind of stand on there, and it's going to tell me, differences between one limb to the other, which can be valuable. It all depends on how you do it. They have to be fasted. They have to be same time and all that kind of stuff. So there is some limitations, but I found it's pretty good. We use force plate. We try to jump every 2 weeks, just a counter movement jump and a squat jump. Done that for 3 years, and some pretty good data on consistency and where our guys are at. Good for return to play as well. If you got a knee, we had an MCL guy last year, and we use the force plate data to help get him back. It was pretty cool. We do a mini wing gate usually every 2 weeks, so a 6-second max effort sprint on the watt bike, and it just gives us a snapshot of where they're at. It's not a complete wing gate, obviously, but that's proven pretty valuable too, as far as like a trend, looking at the year. So what happens throughout the year. Those are our big.
You say a trend, like more of a team indicator than an
team
individual
indicator,
okay.
yeah. So our average is 1,200 watts. Okay, who's within that by 50 watts? Who's really above that, and why? Is it somebody that doesn't play a lot, who's training more, and then who's really low and why? And I think it allows me and my assistant to kind of adjust to make sure that we're okay. That guy needs a little bit more strength work, needs more rep work. Okay, that guy needs more nervous system, more jump, more whatever. And I think those adjustments are hard enough to make as it is during the season, but with data to kind of, I feel like all the data we use backs up my intuition as a coach. It's like, the guys come into the gym in the morning, it's like, oh, that guy looks tired.
Right.
Bad body language. Doesn't want to talk to me. Okay. So what's going
I
on?
don't think that's just because maybe he thinks you're a dick.
There's that. That's always a factor. But it's true, right? Any of that technology stuff, I'm not a tech guy by any means, but it typically will back up what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That guy looks like shit. There's something going on. Is he fighting with his wife? Is he sick? Is he pissed off about something? Something's up. And now I have to make sure I have a conversation with that guy to see if I can make an intervention in some way, shape, or form, or help in some way. And 99 times out of 100, it's been what I thought. Maybe not exactly, but there's been something there.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, because with the proliferation of these different technologies, I think people are losing that personal touch. That they just want to look at what the HRV tells them, or the Omega Wave, or whatever it is, rather than have a conversation with an athlete and use intuition and emotional intelligence to to figure out some
Just
adjustments.
they're human
that need to be
beings.
made. Yeah.
They're human beings, and like when I first got here, I brought this technology with me, and I did that to back me up, right? Because I was by myself. So you're one guy, 25 guys in the room, and you got to coach everybody. So if I don't have technology to kind of help me evaluate, help me dictate programming, help me, whatever, then I'm in a disadvantage right away. So I brought that in, yes, but it wasn't my primary focus off the hop. My primary focus off the hop was I got to get this group to trust me. I got to get them to realize that I'm here for their benefit. Obviously, I work for the team, but I'm heavy on the player side. And that's not that I kiss ass or anything like that. It's more like that's the product, right? So if we're not putting the right gas in the tank, if we're not putting the right tires on, then we can't expect it to be the fastest car on the road, right? So it's if the trust isn't there, then I can't even have the conversation. So I think you're right. I agree. It's a huge miss now, and people are just go, oh, the data says this, and the data says it gives a shit. If the guy's fighting with his wife, he's not going to be himself. That's just a reality, right? I went to a soccer conference, or heavy in soccer, anyways, and all these guys from all these different, high-level teams, and all they did is talk about the same shit. And nothing against soccer. I think it's a cool sport, whatever, but all they care about is the data. And these three guys talked about we see all our injuries at high-end sprinting. Okay, so why don't you do something about that? Why don't you have them sprint a little bit more? Or why don't you have them develop some strength in their hamstrings? Oh, no, they don't like to lift. Okay.
You don't have to lie.
I'm gonna leave now.
You don't have to lie to us. I know you as a hockey guy see the World Cup on TV and see soccer players take a flop, and you're just like,
yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah. Are hockey players the toughest athletes in the world?
I think so. I do. I work with some football guys too, and it's just different. It's just different. The hockey guys, I would never say an analogy like it's a war or something like that. It's especially in the U.S. It's where they hold their military in such high esteem, which they should. It's not that.
You guys have a military in Canada?
Yeah, we're there.
No, just all
No,
Mounties.
not Mounties.
Okay.
I'll tell you a story about that after. Yeah, I think it's a total team game for sure, but you're also out there on your own a little bit too, which this is just my opinion, that there's also that element of like you could end up fighting somebody. You could end up getting punched in the face. I think no other sport can say that, and I don't know how much longer it'll last in hockey, but it keeps the game honest. You can't be a rat out there because ultimately you have to be accountable for your actions. So that in itself creates a different type of athlete. If you're a football guy, like, what's really going to happen to you if you go and drop kick somebody in the back? You get kicked out of the game, you get fined, but no one's going to come and like claim retribution. In hockey, you do something shitty, you're going to pay for it. It might be 30 games later, but it's never forgotten. Like, give you an example. One of our players I was talking about, who's a smooth skater, was one of the last games of the season, a home game against Calgary, and Calgary's captain took him out, did his MCL. Now, is the Calgary guy a dirty player? I don't think so, but he had been suspended 1 or 2 times before, so as soon as that happened, the defenseman was one of our best players. It was known. It was known on the ice right away that what was going to happen. The captain who hit him knew that he had to fight somebody on our team. He knew it. So he tried to get over and fight our captain, who's our best player. And our coach said, not a chance, you're not fighting him. Right? Because if something bad happens to him, then we're up shit creek. The other captain was also doing that because he didn't want to fight one of our other guys, who was extremely tough.
The tough
and
guy, right?
Nut job.
The Dean Portman of
Yes.
the Ducks.
But it's funny because
He wanted more of the Adam Banks.
Yes.
thing,
Yeah.
and he knew that the guy he didn't want to fight, he didn't know if he'd be able to win that fight. What ended up happening? He got knocked out by the guy he didn't want to fight.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think that guy is a dirty player. I really don't. Somebody else might say differently. And the hit wasn't, I don't think he meant to do it. I think it was just but it doesn't matter. you have to pay for it, and he knew it. He knew it right away.
Is this a Canadian guy too?
Yeah.
Did he say sorry after?
No, he's
no sorries.
switchy. It's yeah, he's a little scary.
I'll say that the Canadian doesn't say sorry.
Yeah, he probably would have after the fact, but
Yeah.
but it's crazy because I think that that just creates something different on the ice.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like it's just that. I don't think it's, you know, some people are barbaric and this and that. No, being accountable. That's.
So how much training do you have to do? How much fight training do you do with them?
I mean, it's funny because I did quite a bit in the last couple of years, and I wouldn't say it's fight training. It's just you get these fighters that, you know, and I don't have an extensive background in it, but you know, I have a little bit and know how to throw a punch. And a lot of the guys are inefficient. So when you see a hockey fight, it's like grab on and let's go. Let's see who falls first, which is kind of crazy. Which is crazy. But there's not a whole lot of. Well, I think there's more now technical than there used to be. Just whose chin is harder, right? Which is.
Don Fry action.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see how many. Yeah, exactly. See how many punches you can take. Where now there's a little more, you know, technique involved. And what I would do with our fighters, typically our bigger guys.
Yeah.
You know, part of their cardiovascular conditioning would be hitting heavy bag.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of kills two birds with one stone. And you know, we had to get the monitors on them. They're in the red.
Oh yeah.
They're right where they need to be. You know, and it's teaching them to keep their hands up, or, you know, reinforcing keeping their hands up, you know, how to punch in combinations as opposed to just teeing off, you know. And our guys loved it. Our fighters loved it because it's
specificity.
Yeah.
That's specific to their job on the hockey team.
It's true. It's ultimately, and not everybody would have to fight, but you know in the back of your head that you just may have to.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, going to Ducks games, it was Paul Correa and Tamer Solani. Paul Correa wasn't going to get in a fight with anyone, but yeah, they had a guy for that.
Yeah,
they had a guy for that.
George Peros.
Where can people follow you? Your gyms in Canada, all that stuff.
Yeah, at Fitzgerald ETS is my personal stuff, and then at Team ETS is the gyms. So there's you know, we're starting to kind of build some content taken from guys like you, what you've done, not to that degree, but you know, letting people know what we're doing in the gym and who we're doing it with, and it's fun to grow it.
Awesome.
You can find me on Instagram, Max_Ada, or Facebook, or you can email me max@jtsstrength.com.
And I'm Chad Wesley Smith, at Chad Wesley Smith, and at Juggernaut Training on Facebook and Instagram. You know, subscribe to our YouTube, check out our online coaching through juggernautcoaching.com. New JuggLife episodes every Tuesday, Beers with Chad on Fridays. Today's episode with our friend Mark Fitzgerald, brought to you by Zambonis and Zercher squats. It's a lifestyle.
Oh, good.
I got more of them. I was bringing them out because I was here in the Zamboni. I could not mix that in. And maybe like chiclets and
or metal strength conditioning where we're sitting.
All right, yeah.
Those are our buddies right there.
So thank you for them to Metal for hosting us today, and we'll see you next week.